Mira,
Se viene,
voy a ponerlo
0.3 de Path of Exile 2.
Hola.
¿Lo oís?
Sí, Muhan es fake, Muhan no está aquí. Se dará cuenta que le hemos movido.
¿Por qué me habéis movido?
It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the third Edict.
No sé, Taco se estaba riendo de haberlo hecho, así que...
Seguro.
¡Oscarui!
Tota. Ojalá.
Qué buena noticia.
Deja de spoiler cosas, Taco.
Verdad.
Día de cinemática, puto Alfie.
And we have stood by, doing nothing. Hear my voice, ancestors. Show us your strength. Show us the true way. I understand.
Qué bueno, mola.
Va a ser espectacular.
El pollo por fin encontró otro lugar.
¿Y el mono? Hay muchos jefes para ser un acto,
25.
Van a hacer como hicieron con Puedo 1, que pasaron del acto 4 al acto 10.
¡Acto 4, gente! 3 interludios, 35 zonas nuevas, 24 nuevos bosses.
Oh, qué chula.
¿Eso es Trinity?
25 nuevos mapas, 40, 150 nuevos notables.
¡Sprinter!
Nuevo sistema de tradeo.
¿Cómo que nuevo sistema de tradeo? Eso sí que me interesa.
Es lo que tú estás pensando.
Es lo que yo siempre he querido para este juego.
Rise of the Abyssal.
Abyss.
Tres bosses, parecía.
¡Qué chulo!
Es más pequeño el tráiler que otras ligas, pero pinta muy bien. Ahora hay que desarrollarlo.
Más pequeño.
Sí, y ha puesto que las support se pueden...
No me puedes comparar esto con el reward de una mecánica y un boss que no funciona.
As you can see, there's a lot going on. We have a lot to reveal today. We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline.
Solo acto
But
4,
that's
una
not all.
lástima por ahora, pero
There's
es lo
also
que es.
3 new interlude acts to get you to endgame, which means we're removing cruel difficulty too.
Ah,
After that,
a
we'll be
tomar
going through
viento
the massive
entonces.
changes to characters.
Sí, la toma el momento
I'm
de...
super excited
El acto
to
5 y
show
6 que
overhaul
conocemos
our
ahora.
support gem system. Added
Son
new
4
skills,
actos en
and
verdad.
yes,
El acto
there are
4
buffs.
y 3 actos de interludio.
Next, we'll go over the rise of the Abyssal.
Ojo,
Son
This is
4
an
actos.
exclusive league mechanic, and talk about the new rewards, crafting systems, areas,
4
and
new
bosses
bosses
that it
de
adds.
Abyss.
After that, it's on to changes we're making to the endgame. Then it's time to talk about items, crafting, and oh yeah, trade. That's going to be a big one. We'll
Asíncronos
then go
trade.
over our new supporter packs and finish up with a
¡Vamos!
live Q&A session.
Han metido la casa de
Sí, de
subasta.
verdad.
Path of Exile 2's game
Han metido la
directors,
casa de
tradeo de
myself
verdad.
and Mark your questions from Twitch chat.
Lo de los minions te va a
And after
encantar.
that, at 4 p.m. Pacific, hatch notes. They're not quite complete, but they should give you some nice details to chew on.
te la he pasado yo ahora.
We've got a lot to cover today, but first, another announcement. When the third edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's right, Path of Exile 2 will be free for the first time without requiring an early access key. The free weekend will end on September the 1st, so you'll have plenty of time to give the game a try. Alright, let's get started with Act 4.
Esto lo sabía.
The
también.
story continues from the end of Act 3. Doyani has agreed to help you find an ancient weapon that can be used against corruption, the instrument of the Third Edict. The weapon was broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home of the Karui tribes. You will need to journey to Kingsmarch, hire a ship, and set sail.
Ja.
When you open the map, you can choose to sail anywhere you like. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order you choose. Will you visit the pristine beaches of Whakapanu Island?
No es nada
The
lineal el...
Karui whisper of a curse
No
that
puedes
afflicts all
irlas
who
en el
travel
orden.
there.
Pues tienes que hacerlas todas,
Perhaps it's
pero en el
related
orden
to
que
the
te
weapon
salga a
you
ti de
seek.
los cojones.
Mola. Mola.
A
Or
ver
maybe
cómo
you will
Todas,
visit the
entre
llama
Isle
comillas, el
of
mismo nivel.
Kin.
Me gusta mucho esa, esa habilidad del...
Mining for
de fuego, tío.
self-fighting
Es que
driven by some
la
dark
idea es que tú
force.
entres 41 o algo así al acto y
Perhaps you will
salgas
choose to
60.
consult with one of the local Karui tribes.
En este acto y
Their
los
ancient wisdom
entreactos,
could hold clues
Sí.
to finding the third
Los
Edict.
entreactos entre el 60 y el 65.
No matter where you choose to go,
3
you will
entreactos
fight
para 5
dangerous
niveles, qué
beasts,
duro.
find
Y 20
fabulous
niveles en un solo
treasures,
acto.
Sí.
Va a ser largo entonces el acto, ¿eh?
and battle incredible bosses.
¡Un mono!
Mira.
Llama el blanco.
Tota.
Y parece
There are
que
8 islands to
daño de
discover,
caos.
each teeming with its own
Eso
flora
era
and
Tota.
fauna. Act
¿Eso era
4
Tota?
contains over 100 new
Eso era
monster
Tota.
types, 16 new
Juego muy poco
areas,
Tota.
12 new bosses,
Yo
and
juego
plenty of
demasiado.
other interesting encounters. There's a huge amount
Vaya,
to
me
show,
van a banear.
but we're not going to spoil too much here. We want to give you a chance to discover it all for yourself.
¿Por qué?
What happens
Por
after
escena de
Act 4?
sirena.
Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4 and the endgame. So what else could we do? Add 3 new mini-acts, of course, and we're calling them the Interludes. The Interludes are a set of 3 temporary side stories that will be included in the game until Act 5 is released, that will take you to level 65 where the endgame can begin.
Son el acto 1, el
The
acto
first
2 y el
interlude
acto
sends you on a
3,
journey back to Ogham.
pero
Renly has been leading
como
the
si
efforts to
fueran
rebuild
el
Ogham Village
6
after
al
the
día.
defeat of Count Geonor. But there's a
Del uno.
new danger afoot. The nearby town of Holton is surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk emerge to raid the local farmlands. You will discover new areas and new bosses.
Lo
Parece
pones
You
Borana.
need to
muy
find your way
bien.
through the darkness,
es Borana.
Era banana, ¿no?
uncover the
Vale.
source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
and defeat it.
Yes, I shall dance with that cool.
Es el...
And that's just the first interlude. The second interlude will have you return to the Vasteri Desert, where Asala has been given a sacred duty. When the skies align, the gifting of water requires a chosen Sekima to meet with the Selkari, guardians of the sacred water, but they're nowhere to be found. You will need to track down the Selkari, find those responsible for disrupting the gifting, fight even more new bosses,
Está que guapo.
discover the secrets of the ancient ritual, discover new locations, and ultimately help Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3.
La contingencia de
As
Orjani.
Royal Thaumaturge of the Vaal, Doyani had plans within plans to save his people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Vaal deep in a great mountain vault near the home of the Asmeri, deep enough to survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of
Esto
years have
existe, ¿verdad?
passed,
Tiene nombre.
he believes that their descendants may still live, and
Está
may
en
be
Noruega,
key
por
to
ahí.
defeating the beast. The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New foes stand in your way. And the further up the mountain you venture, the colder it will become. Explore caves of ice and enter the vault itself. Who can say what you will find within? The interludes are 6 to 7 areas each and generally include 4 boss fights as well. When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses. It's worth making clear that the
35
interludes are
zonas entre el
temporary.
acto 4
When Act
y los
5 and
3
6 are added,
interludios.
the
Y
interludes will
25
be
bosses
going
en
away.
total.
These are side stories after all. But don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up the interlude are all part of the endgame. We're not just going to throw them away. And with that, we don't need cruel difficulty anymore. We do know that it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character.
Se viene.
And this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. but we do also have another new feature to address that
Se
particular
viene.
concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting. In 030, when you hold down the dodge roll button, your character will go into a sprint after they finish the roll. This is available on all character classes, and there's no limitation on how long you can sprint for. The primary purpose of this feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat. Because of that, if you do take a hit while sprinting, you'll fall to the ground.
Si te derriban cuando estás
The best
sprintando, te
idea is to
derriban.
use a skill when you see monsters.
No, si te
That'll
tocan.
break you out of the sprint so you can engage with no danger. If you do need to run away from monsters, just hold spacebar. You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any monster in the game, allowing you to retreat from
Eso está muy
combat.
bien.
Sprint is a pretty significant change to PoE 2's gameplay. What I like most about it is that we can accelerate the pace of the game for those who want that, without having to compromise on PoE 2's more visceral combat systems. Okay, so that's the new extensions to the campaign, but there's a whole giant league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters. And
Entonces,
probably one of the
el segundo
biggest new
personaje sí tiene
systems
que
here
hacerse la
is
historia
with
otra
the
vez.
support gems. Now, support gems are one of the most interesting elements
Los
to
cuatro
creating a
altos y
build.
los tres
They're what
intermedios.
enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play.
Eso es una putada.
But PoE 2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support
Vale,
gem per
podemos volver a
character.
usar
You
cualquier
can now use
support
as
en
many
cualquier
copies as
habilidad
you
sin
like.
limitaciones.
This should
Bueno.
drastically increase the amount of
En la
possible
parte
builds
usa la misma
and
support dos
increase the
veces.
amount of skill diversity.
O 3 o 6.
Sí.
Así que
There are a lot of
múltiples
potential
proyectiles
builds
en
that
todo lo que
suffered from the
queramos.
previous restriction.
Y
For
tenía que
example,
cambiar
a
la
poison
pasiva
build
ser
previously
gemelista.
couldn't add poison to more than one skill. They couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your
Hola, qué
ability to
guapa.
combo with anything outside of the specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame, because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use on other skills. You would never
¿Por
speed
qué?
up killing Palm with martial tempo, when you would much rather use it on your primary skill
Porque le han
instead.
llamado Rapid Attacks,
There
no
are
es
more
literalmente lo mismo que
examples of
Faster
this all over the
Attacks.
place.
Será para
No,
cambiar a
no,
lo mejor.
In addition to that, though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression in the supports as you went through the
¿Será
game.
para qué?
A lo
There were
mejor
only
melee.
3 tiers of supports,
¿Y
and
tal
many
de
of the
rango?
most important ones were given out at tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now
Hey,
also
yes.
have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game. For example, double barrel support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads automatically when you heavy stun an enemy. In some cases, the highest tiers might work a little differently, and you'll have to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at tier 3, it changes to a new approach. For each different spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful.
Este
Like
sí está
Wrath as
capado a
Assault.
uno.
It's an upgraded version of double barrel that reloads your skill as you dodge roll, as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean that it's the only way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items, many of these can be found from specific bosses. And there's a ton in the regular drop pool too. Some of them are fairly rare, others fairly common. Some of them are build defining, others are just straight up power upgrades. All in all, there's around 40 lineage supports being added throughout the endgame, so there's a lot of power to find out there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to open up a lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame. There's a huge amount to cover here, so we're not going to discuss everything. We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes. We wanted to make cold a more useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its range, Escape Shot now creates fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments explode after a short time, making the skill better for killing groups of enemies.
Incómodo.
But not only that, we added an ice fragment support that creates more of them when killing frozen enemies. And a new buff skill called Ice-Tipped Arrows that allows all your arrows to create ice fragments. This already gives clear to rangers wanting to use ice, but to take further advantage of the ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot additional cold arrows towards every fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability. We've also modified Snipe to consume frozen from enemies, dealing a huge amount more damage, giving you a nice ice single target option.
Haha.
And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it. Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better. Toxic Growth is a skill that was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range skill, so you can spam it more easily. And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters.
Mientras te mantengas, todos son críticos.
Another skill that was annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow, making it easier to use.
Ok, cómodo.
But it also means you can support it with projectile supports. And it now also has Area of Effect, making it a tool for more than just single target, and allowing it to scale into the endgame. We also added a new spirit reservation called Mirage Archer. This is a skill that allows you to create shadowy clones of yourself, to use a skill of your choice.
Básicamente, Bama.
Of course, one of the other big problems the Ranger had was survivability.
Plantas un clon que te copia.
Es una skill de espíritu que copia. No me ha quedado claro si la skill que tú quieras o la
so you're
última.
still vulnerable to things like slams or unblockable attacks.
Mucha cosa para arco, ¿no?
Sí.
To make evasion carries more
clase a
tanky,
clase.
we're adding a new mechanic called Deflect. Unlike evasion,
Nueva
Deflect works on
mecánica de
everything.
deflectar.
And if you successfully deflect a hit,
Es el
you take
super
40% less damage.
Pero mejor que el super.
Items can now give you a mod that gives you some amount of deflection
Porque
based
mejor.
on your evasion.
Porque el super solo funciona con spells
And
y
there's
este
a bunch of it
funciona con
available in the
ataques y
passive tree
spells.
too.
Y depende de tu evasión.
Deflection is rolled in addition to evasion, so this is an upgrade for regular hits too. And unlike evasion, there's no
No está el
maximum
buff a los minions, en
chance.
este juego no existe
You
los
can
minions.
reach 100% deflect against all hits if
Lo
you
hay.
spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk, but especially the Huntress, are seeing big defense boosts from this as well.
Te dije que no había visto
Speaking of
nada.
defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and parry. Now, one of the big concerns on the release of the Huntress was parry
Esto me
feeling
parece una
unreliable.
rotura al
One of the
patata
big
loca.
reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not
Okay.
parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now everything is blockable, except for specifically
Absolutamente
unblockable red
todo es
flash skills
bloqueable.
that bosses use.
Excepto ataques específicos, ha dicho.
This
Excepto
makes
si el
parrying
bicho
much
brilla en
more
rojo,
And not only that, but
todo
to
es
make block
bloqueable.
and parry nicer to use, you now also move
Incluso
faster
la-
than before while using these abilities.
cielo, da igual, todo es
This is a
bloqueable.
massive buff to passive block as well. So to counter that, we did have to lower the max passive block a bit, but overall you should feel much safer. Fire skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more
Qué
as
rápido ha
well.
sido la Amazona en
Let's
comparación
start
con
with
la
the
arquera,
buff.
¿no?
Volcanic Fish are now branches into multiple fishes,
Porque iba muy bien.
giving it much more clearing potential.
La liga pesada.
Bastante que no hayan partido por
We've
la
also
mitad.
added a new skill called Forge Hammer. This skill throws a molten
Bueno, eso ya
hammer
lo
as a
veremos.
slam at a distance. You can recall
Este
the
me han
hammer
dicho
back by using the
básicamente
skill
estaba
again if you
muy
like.
corto de daño de
But
fuego
the
y las han
cooler thing to do is to use a
potenciado.
Warcry near it. Using a Warcry
Ahora
makes the
veremos
hammer
las notas
explode,
después.
making a bunch of volcanic fishes around. Volcanic fishes re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss.
Como me gusta la habilidad esa de la espiral de fuego, la verdad.
We also buffed Perfect Strike to have much larger area of effect, and changed Molten Blast to not always force you to move forward.
Se ve muy
Trust me,
bien,
it feels a lot better to use now. The skill now has massively
El
boosted
block
chance to
ahora me
ignite
parece que
monsters
está
as well.
rotísimo.
And you're going to want to ignite monsters due to a new glory skill called Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by igniting monsters, invoking King Kaum's favor. After you do, use it to channel Kaum's ancestral power. Every attack is ancestrally
¡Qué
boosted with
puta
fire.
pasada!
Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fishes, and molten balls will erupt
Mientras
from
lo
your attacks.
activas, mientras andas, ocurre eso.
Warrior shield skills were another area we wanted to improve. Now that we've got sprint, we actually don't need to have a cooldown on shield charge anymore. It now also does more damage the further away you are when you use it. Significantly upgraded the AoE. Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all the walls.
El leveo vamos a llevar eso solo para putearnos entre nosotros,
We
¿no?
also added a new shield wall. Fortifying Cry gives you a defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills. And Magma Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to use. Just wait for your shield to charge up and block.
¡Hola!
¿Sabes que está por ya de Thorn si no acaban de
Seismic Cry now
buffar?
stuns enemies that are primed for stun. And we changed the Sunder interaction with Armor Break. It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage. Great for bosses. Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate. That summoning an ancestor to fight for you was a big deal. So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon, and massively buffed its damage. It also now scales with your weapon damage too. Since there's no limit anymore, if you build around generating endurance charges, you can summon an entire forest of totems. In order to make that easier, we added some new sources of endurance charges. There's now a support to make Perfect Strike generate charges, and a support for generating endurance charges from heavy stuns as well.
¿Sabes cómo le gusta?
Speaking of totems, we wanted to upgrade the Warbringer. Among the other changes we've made to this class, Answered Call now gives an extra totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of Karui that would make Tukahama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcaller's Bellow support, so that you can get all the benefits with 1 point. And Encased in Jade no longer removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense. Next up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors didn't need to care about very much so long as they're in close combat. But unfortunately, that's not currently the case.
¿Que recuerda una ascendencia o
This
no
was particularly
ascendencia?
annoying with skills like Bone Shatter, which you certainly don't want to mess with. So we significantly buffed your chances
Recuerda que no me sé los
close
personajes de
ranges when
este
you
juego,
don't
por
have
eso
much
pregunto.
accuracy.
Sí, por eso recuerdo.
Warriors shouldn't require any accuracy investment
De
or
dos,
hit
de
with
hecho.
close range attacks now.
O sea, que si haces close combat,
We also
cero
wanted to
necesario de
improve
accuracy,
armor.
tienes un 100% chance
And one
de
of the major
acertar.
weaknesses of armor is the inability to defend against elemental damage. In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree.
Y han metido un modificador de que el daño elemental pasa por la armadura. Hostias.
One of the most
porque ese es
important
el
improvements we
problema
made
si
in
vas a armadura.
030 is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows. You can now reload crossbows without any
¿No
movement.
te da para
damage.
como en Puedo 1 estaquear armadura y aún así
But not
tener
only that,
elemental
all skills that can
resistance?
be used while moving now slow you for a shorter amount of time.
¿Qué?
This change benefits everyone.
¿No
not
te da
just
para
crossbow
estaquear
skills.
elemental resistance
With
al
both of these
cap
changes
y
put
luego ir
together,
a
the run
armadura?
and gun playstyle feels much better. It's hard to explain how important this change is for the feel of the class.
No.
The Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about
En
how
este
we're
no.
rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock, for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right now, but that isn't really giving you enough time to take advantage of it. If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that otherwise wouldn't use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. So we've increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds,
8 segundos de shock.
and skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more.
30 de shock.
You'll find changes like this all around the game. Chill now lasts 8 seconds, giving you more of a reason to weave in cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer.
Pero
But
esto
making
no
skills
sé
like
si es solo para
Permafrost
este
Bolts and
pavo o
Incendiary
en
Shot double
general.
down on how they're supposed to be used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies. And using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the
Me han
opponent's armor.
reworkado la pelea.
This causes
Es mucho más
monsters
grande
to
la
take a
arena.
portion of high velocity rounds damage with every subsequent hit, even tiny pellets.
O la han movido a otro sitio.
So that means following it with a shotgun blast is way more effective.
Este es otro, creo.
Hostias.
No es el que tú crees.
Sí, la pelea
Now there's a
es la
lot
misma.
more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill, and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then
Morteros.
fires the grenade you choose.
Sí.
Morteros.
Hala.
Another issue on the Mercenary were banners. They were just not very good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now last longer, don't disappear when moving out of them, and we removed the Valor mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff, and you can use them when you get enough glory. On Witch, one of the main focuses was making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones. As a starting point, we just straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack minions now always hit, which makes them way better. Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion. We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's Warcry can detonate them too. Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead skeletons, allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster. Ray's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have. To be honest, we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters, and have significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful.
Han subido el daño a los espectros y les han bajado el coste.
There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with newer cult
Y a todos los minions les han quitado el requisito de accuracy.
The staff is actually a wicked scythe.
Y te han dado una skill que los insta revive a todos los minions.
When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing them.
Cooling strike.
It can also inflict critical wounds on enemies too. Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witch's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about two of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you were previously required to spend your first points on Sanguimancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early option, we made Sanguimancy free, unlocking the power of the rest of the class immediately.
Gratis.
On the Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed. Well, you no longer do, so it's a much better option now.
Este es muy loco.
On the Monk, the wind skills needed a big upgrade for sure. Staggering Palm can now stack up its duration if you use the skill multiple times in a row, so you can keep the effect of all your skills throwing up wind much more easily. Wind Blast had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following up with Vaulting Impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in PoE 1 was hand-to-hand combat, but until now we just didn't have a real way to make it viable. Well, that changes now. The Monk, as a true martial artist, now has the ability to learn the Hollow Palm technique, a keystone that lets you use all quarterstaff skills while unarmed. All quarterstaff attacks now have a special unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking energy shield and evasion on your character.
Con esa keystone, todas las skills de quarterstaff van a
A
puñetazos.
new keystone we also added to the Monk section of the tree is Walker of the Wilds. This changes Mana Leech to work with elemental damage instead of physical, which is pretty useful for all those elemental attacks the Monk has. But it works well.
Yo ya decidió que voy a jugar.
Clicker strike.
A puñetazos.
Now, one of the least used
Obviamente, a
ascendancy
puto
classes in the
puño
game is the
limpio.
Acolyte of Chiyula. So we
Obviamente
knew we
que
needed
quiero
to
jugar
make
esa
some
puta
changes here.
mierda.
One of the key things we had to do was make the chaos damage that the Acolyte can do much more useful. So we've added a new skill, allowing chaos damage to ignite, shock, chill, and freeze, embracing the elemental prowess of the Monk in a truly chaotic fashion. In addition, he can make all of his chaos damage leech. And we've buffed Into the Breach and Embrace the Darkness by moving the effects of the 4-point nodes into the base skills. He also gains a new notable, Grasp of the Void, which leaves void illusions behind you as you dodge roll. If they're killed, they do massive explosions of darkness, dealing damage to everything in sight. Now let's talk about Sorceress skills. One of the things we wanted to improve on the Sorc is the ability to use multiple elements together more effectively. Now, this might seem small, but one of the things pushing you towards using a single element is debuffs like Elemental Curses, which lower resistances of a single element. In order to fix that, we're making quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to. So for example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time.
Esto
And
es una
things like
burrada.
Frostbomb, which gave you cold exposure, now give elemental exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills. We also wanted to make switching between different weapon sets smoother, so you can use different elemental staves more effectively. To do that, we've removed the weapon switch time, and now happens instantly. This applies
de arma continuamente
¿Qué dice? Sí, porque tendrá una
Now, we didn't just want
de
to stop
fuego,
there.
otra de
We
rayo.
wanted to add some specific mechanics that work between different elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in. Certain skills can now drop elemental infusions. For example, when a frostbomb explodes, it leaves behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold infused projectiles.
Quiero volver a jugar la maga, Me da
Ice
bien.
Nova will leave a chilled area on the
Yo
ground.
también.
Yo creo que también voy a tirar con la Sword.
And we also added a new low-level skill that fires
Está muy
ice
chula.
shards.
Está
Use it with
muy
cold
chula,
infusion mode, and
ciertamente.
the ice shards will explode. Orb of Storms now generates lightning infusions when you cast enough spells near it. And that's all spells, by the way, not just lightning. Once you have one, you could cast a lightning flame wall, which adds both fire and lightning damage to all the projectiles
Ahora
that pass
tengo
through
dudas.
it.
Es eso que tengo
Or
un
power up Ember
desparpajo
Fusillade with
elemental.
lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine. Get fire infusions
Ya,
from
y todo
boxes
eso.
with living bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the sky.
Oh,
Or use it with Firestorm, which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple different elements at the same time. Add an ice infusion to rain down ice at the same time as the fire. And add lightning to add deadly strikes from the heavens into the mix.
qué guapo.
Or use it with all three to generate a storm that is truly apocalyptic.
Dios, eso con todos.
Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously, you could use it to shatter ice.
Ya, me hace dudar
but
ahora.
now it works to detonate
Pero-
all the different elemental
okay.
ailments and makes them leave behind infusions. And just like how you could previously use it on Frostbolt, you can now also use it on Orb of Storms and Solar Orb to detonate those as well, which means you can create many infusions at once.
Es que mola todo lo de la lluvia.
We also have a Spirit Reservation skill and a support gem to help generate them too. On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the Sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant keystone converts your fire spells to chaos and causes your ignites to deal chaos damage.
Va.
Your fire spells and ignites will also turn purple.
Por si acaso no era suficiente.
Sí, por eso.
The Ritual Cadence keystone causes your invocation skills to trigger more times, but makes them trigger periodically over a longer duration instead of one. Great for those auto-bomber builds. Now, in addition to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class. Overall, there are more than 100 new notables on the tree, usually around 20 per class, along with smaller clusters as well. Check out the old version. And here's the new
Madre.
version. It's a
Me
lot more
cago
dense and there's more
en
interesting
tu
nodes than
puta
before.
madre.
Now, we probably can't go through too many
Van a
of these in a
faltar
live stream,
puntos.
so I'll just show you one from each class's
¿Sabes lo
area of the
divertido?
tree.
Esos patchabin que
We
tenías
tried to
ya
be
no
a lot more
valen. Ni
thematic
uno.
with the new nodes. So, for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of armor break apply to your fire damage. Or how about Last Stand, which gives you lots of stats as your situation becomes more and more desperate. A lot of these have themes aligning with ascendancy classes. Like for the Gemling Legionnaire, for example. You have crystallized immunities, which makes you immune to different status ailments depending on which support gem color you have socketed the most.
Y si tienes dos
Another
igual,
ascendancy
mismo
class
número.
aligned
Es
notable
lo que
is
te iba a preguntar
Sangmatic
yo. Si tienen
Rituals.
dos iguales,
It
¿qué?
allows arcane surges to generate life instead of mana, unlocking that support gem to be used with the Blood Mage Ascendancy. In the Sork area, you'll find these Archon nodes that allow you to convert all of your elemental damage to a specific element. You become a Lightning Archon when you spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to lightning, and you will do extra lightning damage as well.
Otra vez.
Cold and fire too, with different triggers.
Bueno.
Here's another cool one. Elemental Practitioner
Es
gives
para de
crit
nuevo,
bonuses
taco.
if you've triggered a skill recently, while also making crits generate more energy
O
for
lo que
triggers.
sea que alimente la lluvia, tío.
Or maybe you'd
Sí,
like the
correcto.
Great Boar. It gives you a reason to stack dexterity to make you tougher, giving a
Hostia.
bonus to life and stun threshold.
Parece para Huntress.
Or the Cunning Fox. It straight up gives you 5% quality to all your gems. Now, another major change is attribute requirements. We felt like players probably had a few too many nodes and attributes and not enough in interesting passives, so we lowered attribute requirements by 25% across the board. That means you'll have more points to spend on interesting notables rather than just needing to allocate more strength, dex, and int. Now, there are way more changes than just these. These are just some of the cooler ones we wanted to show off, but I'd say that's just about enough for now. We're not even half done yet. So I think it's time that we talk about the League, the rise of the Abyssal. And to do that, I'd like to hand things over to Mark.
Recordatorio, esta
As you
liga
just saw,
tiene
even though there are
mercadillo.
major changes to the campaign for this update, we want to make sure that every time you come back for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content. And the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league, which not only has a fresh economy, but also has new content exclusively available in that league. So, let's delve into the details of what Path of Exile 2's first official league is bringing to the table. The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics
hay
and
liga?
necromancy,
Entonces el
Ahí
tercer
está,
edicto es parche de
but have merely
expansión
been biding their time
El
underground.
tercer edicto es la
Y avises
First
la
expansión.
liga.
encounter signs of the Abyssal in
Y avises la
Clarefall,
liga.
where you discover
¿Tenemos
that
logro?
during the night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been attacking the encampment. The townsfolk require your help to investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their attacks.
Out there, ancient creatures.
Solo hay un drop, sí.
Mortimer,
hoy
que
sí.
es nuestra coleguilla.
As you proceed through Rayclast, you'll find fissures in the earth connected to larger pits. The monsters normally inhabiting the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even, having their souls eaten to strengthen the abyssal underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and abyssal emerge, angered by you killing their food.
Todo empieza el
Once all
29.
those fissures have been sealed, the pit activates, and more abyssal pour out. This is where the larger and more dangerous
Hostias.
monsters reveal themselves.
Es al
as
revés.
hordes of abyss will spew out from the pit to take
El
your
primer
soul.
domingo del Liga yo no estoy.
Vaya.
Vaya.
If you kill
Y
a
el
magic
tercero
abyss,
tampoco.
then magic abyss
Pero-
will rise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit,
Y el
having
segundo
absorbed
taco.
some or all of its modifiers for itself.
Es verdad.
This means the monsters emerging will generally be more difficult and more rewarding, as each modifier gives better rewards.
Y ella
If you
necesita
are
cambiar
able
la
to kill
fecha
them
3
all,
semanas
the
después.
pit will seal shut. As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward. Abyssal troves will rise up out of the pits, allowing you to get some epic loot.
Uy, eso haga-
Areas often contain many pits, with many fissures, and the amount goes up as you progress through the game, getting more intense.
Me gusta el efecto del
It
lápiz.
doesn't
¿no?
stop there. When monster mods are absorbed,
Tal
they
vez
have a
al revés,
chance to
está
become
abierto y lo
infused
tienes
with
que
the dark
cerrar.
necromancy, transforming them into abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the Mana Siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The Mana Siphoner modifier has transformed into Soul
Soul
Siphoner,
Siphoner.
and is now amplified in danger and reward.
Segura de los mods. ¿Qué pasa de los otros?
Abyssal pits also interact with other monsters and mechanics. If you defeat a rogue exile that's near one, it'll be revived as a Lichborn that has multiple abyssal modifiers. Lichborn exiles even have their own unique jewel they can drop, if you
Te
are
lo
lucky enough to
transforman,
encounter
avisa.
and kill them. If an abyss spawns near a boss, killing it will summon a gigantic Giga Larvae creature.
¿Qué dices?
¡Hostias! Si
Eso
matas
sí
al boss
mata a
en
un
un
boss.
avis,
Present and essences near
sale un
abyssal
boss de
pits
Abyss.
are affected by the abyss too. They will come with an additional new essence item that can be used to craft
Esencia
your
de
items. So, that's your bread and butter of the Abyssal League. Kill surface-dwelling monsters, kill the emerging Abyssal, close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards. There's a lot more to this league, however. As you complete Abysses, you can find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn. These are one of the many rewards for your mission to seal the pits. You can use this on a rare item to imbue it with abyssal magic, adding a special hidden modifier to your item.
Hostia,
How do you reveal it?
eso no es un
In
baile.
Act 2 of the campaign, you'll
un
encounter
baile
a
raro.
new area.
Pero era
No,
séptimo mod.
This area is overrun by the
¿Serio?
Abyssal and the Lost
Sí.
Men.
No puede ser que haya un mod que sea de 2 líneas. No los hay en
Puede
Puedo.
ser, puede ser, puede ser.
A
Puede ser,
giant
sí, los
cavity
hay,
with a
los hay.
massive vortex of souls swirling beneath you.
Tenemos que venir aquí cada vez que queramos revelar uno.
So how do you reveal the mods on your abyssal-infused items?
Tenemos que ir
Obviously,
a
just
donde
throw them in,
Hércules
right?
sacrificó su divinidad.
Yes, that's exactly what you do. Before throwing it in,
Tenía
you are given
cuatro
the
o
option of
cinco.
how you want to transform it,
Tiene 5.
in the form of a choice of
Ahora
3
cinco.
different modifiers.
Si esto es
Es
un bailer
literalmente un
en
bailer.
toda
You've chosen your desired mod,
Nuevo ítem para
throw
bailar
it in,
ítems.
where it will absorb the power of the souls, and the ominous creature will then retrieve it for
¿Cómo?
you.
Hostia, que lo tira.
These modifiers can be ones from the core mod pool, all the way through to specialized modifiers that cannot normally appear on items.
Gracias.
During the campaign,
Hostia,
you
cómo
can
mola.
use it as a way to more easily add useful existing mods. But during the
Ah, te lo
endgame, there is a whole
craftea.
set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items.
Eso
Puedes
está
hacer
un
todas
Like
las
this mod for
que
crossbows
quieras.
that allows you to
Eso
place
está
an
un marroto.
additional master totem.
No
No,
creo.
instrucciones.
Or this one that
Solo
adds spirit
podrás
to your staff.
joder unirte una vez, supongo.
Or this one
Imagino que sí,
that
pero
allows you to
ten en
generate
cuenta
more
que eso te
power with
permite
your quarter
craftearlo
staff.
también.
Es muy bueno.
And speaking of endgame, you can also use the system to craft waystones. With a preserved vertebrae fused into your waystones, you can get some new modifiers that push difficulty and rewards to new heights.
Qué rico.
Taco, esa
Here are
Winston
some
sí tiene 6
examples of
mods,
those
¿eh?
mods.
Ahora
You
tiene
always
mana
get a
cifras
choice of
ground.
3, so you can avoid anything you don't think your character is capable of. With this modifier, the natural inhabitants of the area are all spawned near abysses, and there are up to 9 additional abyssal pits in the area, making it just a full-on abyss ruckus. Or this one, which causes the final abyssal pit in the area to always result in a boss encounter, be it either one underground or one that emerges out. There are dozens of these waystone modifiers in total you can get from this crafting. That covers the new crafting mechanic. So what's left? Well, we talked about how when closing pits you can get abyssal troves, but sometimes when closing an abyss, you'll reveal an underground cavern that leads to the abyssal depths. After jumping into the depths, you'll find an abyssal city, swarming with legions of the undead. When underground, every single rare abyssal enemy will have an abyssal modifier. And at the end of the dungeon, you'll even find a rare with a more powerful Lichborn modifier.
Es enorme.
Once you're able to
Cada
defeat
élite
this
de la zona
powerful
Abyss
rare,
tiene poderes
you
de
can
Abyss.
also find some nice rewards. Aside from the entire area
ser
being
duras,
valuable due to
Glitter
the
of
abyssal modifiers on
Augmentation.
the monsters, it has its own specific drops too. One example is a set of lineage supports that can rarely be found in these depths, like Kurgel's Leash.
La
This
super
support
nueva.
empowers both you and your minions
Holy
when you
might.
command them, granting unholy
A los
might to you
minions.
both.
Sí, para ti.
When
Another
command.
depth-specific outcome is a set of omen-like items that amplify your abyssal crafting.
¿Esto es un sugerecora?
Additionally, we're adding some new
No.
socketables that can drop from the abyssal depths.
Parecido.
Take Ulaman's Gaze, which can be socketed into your armor. These are a bit special, in that you can
100%
only
affected
have one
damage.
equipped at a time, but give some pretty powerful effects.
No, limitado a 1.
Think of them as almost a unique socketable for your equipment. In the endgame, where you can still find depth,
Eh,
you also start to find a different type of underground chamber. In these areas, you'll find an ancient spire, a device being used by commanders of the abyssal factions to plunge Rayclast into a lightless
Deja hacer que le
void.
dé la bola.
Your goal is simple. Kill this commander and destroy the spire. There are 4 bosses in the Abyss League, and there are some pretty
Cuatro,
cool
no
uniques
uno.
available from them. An example is this belt, Darkness Enthroned. It has 2 sockets. But hold on, socketables don't work on belts.
ahora sí.
Well, this belt has a special mod that allows it to count as a different slot for the purpose of socketables. This one, for example, counts as a
Este,
helmet.
por ejemplo.
I kind of want one that counts as a body armor. I wonder how rare that one is. You can also find this unique jewel, Undying Hate. This jewel transforms part of your
Sensible.
passive skill tree into an abyssal version, and has multiple depths. The deeper it goes, the more of your passive tree is affected, allowing you to fulfill your fantasy of becoming part Abyssal Lich. Now, the last thing that Abyssal Commanders can do is a finger of the Lich. But what use do you have with a random undead finger? Well, the next time you return to the Well of Souls, with the finger in your inventory, your character will almost feel compelled. To do what, though, you might ask? To jump in. The items you threw in came back more powerful, right? So, what's the worst that could happen? Well, you will just have to find that one out for yourself. Along with the introduction of Act 4 and the interlude, we will be adding 25 new in-game maps. These maps will contain all the new monsters and bosses we're adding, improving variety and giving you opportunities to experience the new boss fights many times. Let's take a look at some examples. Rock Pools is a map where you explore a shallow rocky coastline, surrounded by coral and filled with sirens. At the end is a giant Goblin King boss, ready to hit soul fight and squish you like a bug.
Toca borrar lo que has hecho y hacerlo de cero.
Holton is an Ezomite township which has seen better days. Explore and clear the township to find a gothic, Reaper-like boss, with the ability to manipulate storms and fry you with both lightning and wither you with chaos. Given some of the new bosses added are a bit more epic, such as the Act boss and final bosses of each interlude part, it would be a bit of a waste to just use them as regular map bosses.
Nuevas ciudadelas.
Instead, we'll be adding some new mechanics to the Atlas that use them. These start appearing pretty fast into the endgame and will help bridge the gap until you do your pinnacle bosses. In the desert biome, you can encounter a wild sandstorm. 3 maps around the sandstorm contain a device you must activate. Upon doing this, the sandstorm's magic is disrupted, revealing the map inside and allowing you to access it and find the cause. This presents itself in the form of a boss, similar to the existing Citadel bosses. This boss is a Faradin Swordmaster, who has been blessed with the power of a time gem, allowing him to take his swordsmanship to the next level by replicating himself, maneuvering rapidly, and severing the fabric of time itself with his powerful slashes. In the water biome, you'll encounter a giant maelstrom, where one of the maps surrounding the water biome connects to it, but the connection is obscured. You must run the maps nearby, hoping to find a beacon, which will remove the maelstrom and reveal the connection to that map. Another example is this Vaal vault in the mountain biome. But how do we get inside? Running the adjacent maps to it will yield a key, which you can then use to gain access to this vault. Or, you could just trade for one, I guess. Use the key to dispel the powerful force field surrounding it, leading to the Vaal Elite and their rewards inside. These all contain Uber versions of the Act 4 boss, and the bosses at the end of each part of the interlude. And each have their own exclusive drop pool of new lineage supports, which, as Jonathan spoke about earlier, are powerful support gems that modify your skills in pretty crazy ways. 40 nuevas support. As an example of a lineage support which can come from the Faradin Swordmaster mentioned earlier, we have Garo Khan's Resolve, which causes your critical strikes to fork, but requires some mobility on your part to properly enable. From the boss sealed in the Vaal Vault, we have Paquate's Pact, which supports your war cries, causing them to inflict massive amounts of corrupted blood at the cost of your own life. Additionally, some maps can now spawn summoning circles, a room resembling an Ezomite henge. Activating this henge will spawn bosses. It's as simple as that. We'll also be making changes to how affixes on waystones work, as the current prefixes equals good, suffixes equals bad iteration isn't quite hitting the mark. We tried something new here in Path of Exile 2, but after seeing the feedback we decided we actually liked what we had in Path of Exile 1 more. Like Path of Exile 1, each affix will now be both difficult and rewarding. Waystone mods now grant an increase to the number of waystones dropped, and an additional specific upside attached to it. This means as you roll your map, they will continue to get more difficult and more rewarding, and allow you to customize the difficulty and rewards of your maps better. For example, the Frostbitten mod, which causes enemies to deal cold damage, also increases the rarity of items dropped as its upside.
50 minutos sin
Whereas
parar
the
de
Venom suffix
contenido,
modifier, which causes enemies to poison on hit, has the upside
Esto
of
me parece
granting
muy bien,
increased
la verdad.
pack size. Some maps will end up having a lot of rarity, some a lot of pack size, and others will just have a mixture of everything. Due to now having more modifiers granting difficulty, we will of course be reducing the difficulty per modifier to account for this. So, that's your Atlas, maps, and waystones, but what about Breach, Ritual, Pinnacle content, and others of the sort? We're making some changes around this too. The first change is that you'll now be able to invest 2 points into your specific League Atlas trees before having to run the Pinnacle content. There will be a specific objective for each type of content which grants you those points. For example, in the case of Delirium, it's simple. You just need to find and kill one of the bosses in a map, Omniophobia or Kosis.
Los primeros dos gratis.
The rest of the points for each content come from the Pinnacle content, but we're making some changes to accessibility here too. Currently, access to most Pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and the most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the realm gate, you can now just bring your splinters. Upon inserting the splinters into the realm gate, an interface will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, and you'll notice each difficulty has a different entry cost. This means if you want to run easier difficulties, it costs less, which also allows you to run this content much sooner into the endgame.
Eso está bien.
Because these encounters now just require splinters, their corresponding Atlas tree no longer affects the difficulty of them, and has been changed to purely affect the content in maps and maps.
El 1.0 para abril de 2026 mínimo.
Instead of requiring splinters, he still needs crisis fragments. We now have only 2 difficulties of the Arbiter. The first, requiring the existing fragments obtained from citadels. The second, Uber Arbiter, requires Calamity fragments.
Oh no, Calamity no.
These come from citadel bosses also, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss Atlas tree.
O sea que
ensuring those citadels
es de
are
los
the highest
citadeles
difficulty
y otros de los citadeles con todos los puntos
we're
puestos.
talking about Pinnacle content,
Sí.
we also felt that the leveling
Porque no había
curve in
ninguna
the game
razón
was
por
a
ponerle
bit
los
too steep.
puntos, era de gilipollas.
We've smoothed this out a bit so that it's easier to get to the mid-90s. We've also added some new in-game unique items. Let's take a look at a couple. Thunderfist is a pair of gloves that grants Crackling Palm, a skill which empowers your unarmed attacks, granting the ability to call down the storms themselves on enemies you hit. Put simply, literally every monster you hit with your unarmed skills will be struck by powerful lightning. Pair this with the aforementioned Hollow Palm technique to embrace your true unarmed prowess in combat. Another unique we're adding is Hinekura's Sight. Equip this amulet to be granted the power of the Mother of Death herself. This is reflected by granting you a skill called Foresight. While you have Foresight, your dodge roll no longer avoids hits. But instead, being hit while dodge rolling restores you to full life and makes you unable to die for a brief period of time.
¿Cómo?
You'll notice when this does occur, a copy of your character appears and takes the full damage. This is you seeing that future, as if you hadn't been wearing the amulet.
No puedes hacer
Ultimately,
espacio,
your in-game experience should
pero
be more
cuando lo haces
streamlined,
eres
with new
inmortal
content to
y
find.
recuperas la
You'll
vida.
be able to invest in your Atlas trees
Pero no puedes
sooner,
esquivar,
engage with Pinnacle content faster, have
pero
less
cuando usas
FOMO
el
running
espacio
said
eres
Pinnacle
inmortal
content,
y
reach
recuperas
higher
toda tu
levels
vida.
easier,
¿Cuánto
and
cooldown
do
tiene?
all of that while finding many
A
new
saber.
chase in-game items.
El del
Talking
espacio,
about finding items is one thing, but what about crafting them? We've taken a step back and looked at some of our crafting systems to make some notable improvements. Let's start with essences, which suffered from an issue where the regular essences were effectively useless and didn't give players the tools or excitement that a crafting system should provide. To alleviate these concerns, essences are being changed in a few ways. Firstly, they're being changed to function like regals and add specific modifiers with specific values. meaning you know exactly what you're going to get. We found that players were often bottlenecked by regal orbs when crafting in the campaign, so this helps to fill that gap, allowing you to better upgrade your items. For example, this Lesser Essence of Flames, which will be able to add a flat amount of fire damage to your magic martial weapons. Secondly, we're adding many more
Todas son
tiers.
regals.
That Lesser Essence of Flames, for example, has a regular variant
sí,
and a greater variant too, adding even more fire damage with each upgrade. The intention of this is so that when you find one early on, you don't worry about holding onto it till later to use on a higher level item. You should feel free to use them as they come to get powerful upgrades during the campaign. Lastly, our highest tier of essences, now called Perfect Essences, will function like a Chaos Orb instead of a Regal. So it will replace one of the modifiers on your rare items with the specified mod. Such as this Perfect Essence of Frost. You'll notice this one doesn't just add flat fire damage like the ones before it. The Perfect Essences often give something a bit different, with some opportunities to be pretty damn powerful. There are many different essences, each with many tiers, covering many of the more core modifiers you'd want on items early on, through to chase specialized ones for endgame. Speaking of endgame, we really wanted to expand our crafting options for late endgame crafting projects. You might have noticed that at endgame, you get way too many transmutes. Wouldn't it be nice if some of those didn't drop, but instead you got something a little more powerful? At higher levels, you can now find Greater Orb of Transmutation and Perfect Orb of Transmutation. These can be used on normal items to upgrade them to magic, ensuring that the modifier generated is of a minimum level. This is similar to how you find higher tier items on the ground, but for crafting. These higher tiers will also exist for Orb of Augmentation, Regal Orb, Exalted Orb, and Chaos Orb, meaning you can get all of the orbs required to take your item from normal rarity to a fully completed rare with guaranteed high tier mods. On top of these new core crafting currencies, we wanted to make sure there are powerful crafting bases to use them on. Now in endgame, you can start to find exceptional items. These are items that drop at normal rarity and are perfect for your from-scratch crafting projects. They can come with extra quality, up to 30%, or an additional socket to use your crafting socket in. And yes, they can be corrupted for yet another socket. You can also get exceptional unique items. To add even further to your crafting arsenal, we've added a whole suite of new omens to ritual content, and removed some of the more unimpactful ones that weren't being used. Some of the new omens include the Omen of the Ancients, which will cause your next Orb of Chance to not destroy the item, but generate a random unique of the same class. Or the Omen of Sanctification, which is my new favorite.
Lo santificará.
This will cause your next Divine Orb used on a rare item to re-roll the values of its modifiers, allowing it to exceed the normal minimum and maximum values, raising the ceiling on the new most powerful rare items in the game. This Omen will also cause your item to become sanctified. Sanctified items cannot be crafted, just like corrupted ones, so consider carefully when you use this. Another is the Omen of Chaotic Monsters, which will cause your next Chaos Orb to re-roll all modifiers on a Waystone, allowing you to fix your maps if you get some modifiers that are not feasible for your build. Besides these examples, there is a huge variety of new omens for you to discover in your ritual encounters. With the release of Act 4, notably taking place in the Karori Archipelago, you'll be able to now find a new currency item, Henikora's Lock. Henikora, the Karori goddess of death, has the power of foresight, and is able to see many futures, including the outcome of your next craft. So, imbuing her lock onto an item gives you that same power too. For example, you'll know whether or not to use an Exalted Orb on your item, as you will know exactly what the outcome is. So, with all these new crafting improvements, it's safe to say you're going to be making some epic items, and not necessarily just ones for yourself. So given that, it's time to talk about a massive one: trade.
Nuevo sistema de comercio, gente.
It's finally here. The moment we've all been waiting for. Fully asynchronous trade. Over the years, the way players trade with each other in Path of Exile 1 has morphed from using the forums through to the in-game chat,
ni años que no veo yo un
all
post
the
de
way through
esos.
to using the website. These systems, in all their iterations,
Tengo que
work
chapar un
for a
rato por
while,
aquí, gente.
but
Chao, chao.
with each iteration, new problems
Vamos a
eventually
tener que hacer
reveal
cosas
themselves.
importantes.
Be it requiring you to be in your hideout too much instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people who are either AFK or just can't be bothered. In order to finally solve this, and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the seller to be present. They can continue farming, killing monsters, AFK as they please,
Incluso offline.
and can even be offline.
Sí, es lo que ponía,
With the
asynchronous
introduction of
offline.
King's March in Act 4, you will encounter Ange, assistant to Rog in the Meridian Free Traders Company. Over the last 2 decades or so, since Path of Exile 1's storyline, Faustus has handed down his knowledge and expertise to Ange, and she is now ready to take over his business. If you have a hideout unlocked already, you can immediately invite her there. If you don't have a hideout yet, you will need to acquire one. You can do this by completing a quest to defeat one of the bosses inhabiting an island in Act 4, allowing you then to take a slice of it for yourself, making it your new home and base of
puedes conseguir el
operations.
primer hideout.
Once invited to your hideout, she will now serve as operating your currency exchange, but also serve as the figurehead in
Y a
your
partir
new
del acto
trading
4 vas a poder
empire.
tener tanto el currency
Dios,
chip como la
tiene
tienda.
tus
How does
pestañas.
this new system work? In the existing trade system, you would list items for sale in premium stash tabs. And then when someone wanted one, you'd have to take it out for yourself and trade it to them. Now, instead of using those, you can give your items to Ange so she can sell them for you. Each item must have a price set. The prices are set using in-game currency items, such as Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs. Once a price is set, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it on the trade website. Once a desired item has been
Tiene un
found,
fee, tiene un coste
you
en
can
oro.
hit a button, which will instantly teleport your character in-game to their hideout. Then, you can immediately purchase the item. And while there, if you want, browse their other goods, in case there's a good
O sea, que
deal
yo veo tu
someone else
tienda.
hasn't yet discovered.
Sí.
You'll notice that
Qué
as a
copado
buyer,
eso,
on
cuando
top of
tenés
the
otro.
currency the seller set for the price, it also costs gold to purchase an item, as Ange has bills to pay after all. As a seller, you'll immediately receive a notification
O sea,
when
yo
an
me puedo
item of
dedicar
yours
durante
is
6
sold.
horas a craftear
And
botas,
can also see
dejo
an
mi tienda
effect above
montada
Ange in your
y vais
hideout
pasando por
when
mi
she has
hideout a
unclaimed
recogerlas.
currency.
Sí.
Just go talk to her,
Básicamente.
claim your currency, and continue playing at your leisure.
Qué duro.
As many people already
He
acquired
dicho que podría,
premium
es una
stash
hipótesis,
tabs
no
for
va a
the
pasar.
purpose of the trade system, we wanted to add a way for you to convert your existing tabs to merchants tabs, if you want. You can do that here, on the website, but only if you purchase those tabs before the release of the third edict. To clarify, the existing trade system will remain
Necesitas
fully intact,
tabs
so
de
your
esto.
premium stash tabs will not
Tabs
lose any
premium
of
que
their
las conviertes a
functionality.
esto.
Ya,
We
tienes que
just
pillar
figured people
tabs de
might want to
esto.
Hay
switch
que
over
comprar
to this new
pestañas
system.
para esto.
We expect a
No,
lot
son
of things
premium que las has
around this new
convertido,
system,
son premium
and
que
I'm
las has
looking forward to
convertido,
trying it
pero
out with
cuestan
you.
dinero convertirlas, es
As
lo que me
we're
he fijado.
not able to test
No.
internally with an entire
Ya,
thriving
si
economy,
ya las tenías
there will
antes de
certainly
hoy,
be some kinks to work out.
si las tenías
Based on how the
antes de la
system goes,
expansión,
we'll
las
be
puedes
adding it to
convertir. Pero
Path
si
of
no las
Exile
tenías
1
antes,
when
las tienes
ready.
que pillar.
So any of the tabs you
Pero yo ahora mismo
purchase
en mi,
will also be usable
al
there
hijo normal
later.
tengo 5 premium en esta tab.
Next
O sea,
up,
tengo que
we're
pasar, las
going to
tenemos
be
los dos, se
talking
duplican.
about our new supporter packs.
No, tienes que
Today,
pasarla.
we're launching two
O sea, que
new
va a tener
series of
las
supporter
pestañas
packs.
y yo las voy a perder.
The Justice and Trathan Executioner packs.
Y le puedo pasar una
Each tier
cuadra.
contains the pack's full face value in points, alongside several exclusive microtransactions.
Blasfemo.
As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your
Claro,
character's
pero sales
power
del
or
mapa,
progression
lo
in
llenas
any
con
way.
toda la mierda que te caiga en el mapa.
The Justice
Y a los
series
3
of
mapas
supporter
vacía la
packs
pestaña y
contains
repites.
6 exclusive microtransactions. Claim glory after defeating enemies, or inspire your allies by calling down the Banner of Justice portal. The Sphinx Mystic hideout decoration will
Una hora y
identify
4
items
minutos
for you,
contando el parche.
displaying them as it does so, This ancient creature has been presented with many items over the eons, so has some strong expressions to make on the quality of your wares.
Nos toca comprar pestañas para darle al
Become
trader.
a true warrior, worthy of delivering the justice of the eternal gods.
A lo mejor te van a hacer cambiar también el vídeo de... si lo tenías hecho ya de...
This
las
armor set
pestañas.
also comes with a matching back attachment containing a set of scales to measure your worth. With the Apostle of Justice finisher effect equipped, the Goddess of Justice herself will appear to decide on a verdict for slain unique enemies. Witness as she decides the fate of your slain foes. Will they ascend to be amongst the gods or be banished to the underworld? The Griffin fledgling pet will be your courageous companion as you journey throughout Rayclast. Take your place in the skies in the Plateau of the Gods hideout. This hideout comes with many different sections for setting up your home or base of operations. In order to travel between them, you simply just need to
No
walk
está
off the
todavía lo de
edge.
preparar las
Like a
pestañas.
true eternal god, you can float between the mountains on the clouds themselves. The Trathan
No.
Execution
A ver, si hay nueva clase, todas
also
son nuevas.
contains 6 exclusive
Han reworkeado
microtransactions.
varias.
The Trathan Execution finisher effect is a brutal display of Trathan might, crushing slain unique enemies as if they were bugs beneath your heel. As a Trathan Executioner, you're the perfect master for the ever-hungry carrion raptor pet. It has taken a particular liking to the taste of other pets,
Ese es Alfie.
and at your command it will swoop down and eviscerate them, proceeding to satisfy its hunger by feeding on their corpse. The nobles of the 4 major Trathan houses had their mercenaries, but if their hired hands became notably irritating, they'd have to call in the Trathan Executioners. You can now embrace their methods and become brutality incarnate with the Cruel Trathan Executioner armor set. The matching Cruel Trathan Executioner cloak will shroud you in scarlet as you crush the skulls of your
Se ve
enemies
muy bien.
and leave a trail of blood behind you as you build up a kill streak. Or use the alternate variant to simply put a skeleton on your back. Be bathed in blood as you mutilate monsters with the Cruel Trathan Executioner character effect. The swirling blood increases in volume as your spree of slaughter continues. Both this effect and the cloak use the same kill streak for tracking how much blood is shown.
No.
After a long and tiring day of executions,
Sí.
enjoy a relaxing game of dice with the Goblin Gambler's Hideout decoration. They'll definitely
hablarán
be
o
playing
cantarán o
fair,
harán algo?
right?
Pero
Han
que no.
devuelto los 3
Pulverizer
goblins.
map device brings a horrid efficiency to punishing
tres
the
goblins?
damned of Trathus.
Los 3
Execute
chiquitines
the
del
execute
Poe 1
Execute the
hacen...
next victim. This map device in its true ruthlessness tracks the total number of monsters killed, your kills per second,
Aunque
and
te
your
encuentras
largest
skins,
kill
esto es
streak
ciclo en
up to the
regla,
point of the map being completed. This is then displayed on a leaderboard so you can take a measure of you and your friends' violence at the end of each map. Additionally, any microtransactions from the supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 1. That's enough
Me
about
gusta el
cosmetics.
cronómetro.
Let's get into the Q&A. But firstly, I want to give a huge
Yo
thank
que
you for your
necesitaba
ongoing
comprar
support.
puntos.
We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. Afterwards, at
Hago
11
una
a.m.
pregunta, si tú
NZ
estás
time,
fijado.
or
¿Hay
4
alguna
p.m.
diferencia entre
Pacific,
faster
we'll host
casting
Path
y
of
faster
Exile 2,
attacks y
the
los
third
rapid
Edict
attacks y rapid
expansion
casting
notes.
esto que han mostrado?
With the release at the end of next week, our community
No
team
lo
will be
sé
posting
porque
crucial information
en
you
el
need
juego
for
no
the release.
existen faster casting.
Keep an eye on the
Existen Marte
news.
al tempo y no sé cómo se llama.
Thanks for joining us today and checking out our latest developments.
La verdad, sí tienes todo.
We're looking forward to
No,
seeing
yo me refiero
your
con las de Poe 1.
experiences with Act
Me refiero
4
por la
and its
razón
new
de cambiarle el
bosses,
nombre, no por otra cosa.
fighting the
No lo
Abyssal,
sé.
trying new builds, and crafting new items. We'll begin the Q&A.
Se les ha ido
shortly,
totalmente de
so
las
please
manos.
get your questions ready.
En 2 horas las notas.
En
En
2
serio,
horas las notas a la hora.
totalmente
Hola.
de las
A
putísimas
la 1 de la
manos.
mañana. Entonces.
Uf, qué tarde.
En serio, totalmente de las putísimas manos.
Te dije que no era ni el 40%.
Pues no está mal, buena presentación.
De hecho,
But
la
the
mitad
four
no
major
sabía ni qué
Trathan
era.
houses
Y la otra mitad sí.
De la otra mitad, sí.
Bueno, pues equipo. Ya está, ¿no?
Hasta mañana. Venga.
Venga.